Hey guys, Sean here with HouseMax Funding. Today we're going to talk about something that is, I would say, critically important to every project with every investor we've ever worked with, and that's draws. I'm joined by Jeff Fector, our CEO and co-founder, Chase the Barber, who's part of our draws team. So Jeff, let's start with you. Since starting HouseMax in 2017, how has the draw process evolved for us? And let me back up. Why are draws so critically important to a project and top of mind for most investors? And then maybe talk a little bit about how our draw process has evolved from 2017 to today.
Yeah, I think draws are so important to these investors because the flow of capital for them to renovate the homes, get reimbursed for the renovation, and continue those renovations, the faster they can do that, the faster they can turn these properties, and then really the more money they make. And so our velocity of turning these draws is wildly important to these borrowers.
Yeah. And then Chase is somebody who spends 100% of your day, many hours every day, working only on draws for our investors. You are deeply rooted in that process. And considering we do 20 to 30 draws a day,
Sometimes even more,
yeah,
upwards of 50.
sometimes 50 draws a day. And I hear you. We're in an office with 60 people in an open space, and you're one of the voices I hear on the phone all day long. You're engaged with borrowers for hours on the day. Talk a little bit about what you've learned is important to an investor on a project, specifically as it applies to draws.
I think the main thing when with the investors is more so just, presenting a case to them to make them feel comfortable and talking them through all the next steps of reading over the FAQ so they have a great understanding of how we work and how our process works. So there's no hiccups or headaches because at the end of the day, we're surrounded by a great team of people on the draw side. And, I think we do a great job of that. And I think just helping them understand that we want to get their projects from point A to point B in a timely manner, is the biggest thing for them.
Yeah, I think, from my perspective, one of the areas where I think you guys have done a fantastic job, you look at what you and Maverick and Debbie and the rest of the team have done on the draw side, and making that decision a couple years ago to implement that discovery call, where as soon as that project is funded, one of the first people in the company they hear from is you or Debbie or Maverick, to really set the expectations, set the tone, answer the questions, and walk them through. Talk about a little bit about what that experience has been like for the borrowers.
Yeah, and it's a great, and I think it's overall really helped with the turn times. Setting those expectations up front, letting them know what we need prior to when they submit the draw. It's really helped with overall turnaround times, and everything's been, going down for the most part since I've joined the team back in January of 20.
When he says going down, he means the draw turnarounds.
Yeah, it's a yeah.
Yeah, it really has, Jeff. I mean, as co-founder and CEO, you are still deeply involved on a daily basis, not just on the sales side, but on the operations side. And I know you play a big role, and I see you working with Maverick and the draws team all the time, looking for ways that we can be more efficient. As somebody that's flipped upwards of 3,000 homes yourself before becoming a lender, I mean, speak from that perspective, the perspective of a lender, on why draws are so important in the process.
Yeah, great question, Sean. When you've done hundreds or thousands of homes, a lot of times you start to look at those scopes of work and they're really repetitive. And so we don't put a lot of time into them because we just know this is a $60,000 project or a $50,000 project or $200,000 project. And really where we find the biggest issue or the biggest pickup that we can share with these borrowers is a detailed scope really helps these draw processes go. And so, a lot of times the newer borrowers have a good scope because they're figuring it all out and they've got this really detailed scope. And it's the borrowers that have done hundreds of projects who are saying, "Oh, it's the back of a napkin. Here's my scope." It just makes it harder for us to kind of figure out which line item goes to what. Our goal is to get the money out the door as quickly as possible. And so the faster we fund your draw, the faster your draws go, the better everything goes. So I think really looking at that and saying the more detailed scope we can get is really going to help. I mean, Chase, you talk to these borrowers all the time, and really the folks that have issues really kind of stems around either expectations or maybe a scope that wasn't very, detailed.
Yeah, exactly. To kind of chime in on that, I mean, yeah, I think it's the big thing is having a detailed scope of work for sure. When the inspector goes out there, they don't know specifically what, example, rough-in. You can have a line item that just says rough-in. What is that for in particular? Is that for electrical? Is that for HVAC? Like, is it whatever the case may be? So sometimes line items could get missed in the mix of it all. So I really prioritize, having a detailed scope of work, because it really helps us on our review process and helps you get draws out a lot quicker and avoids less back and forth and delays in funding, of course, too.
Yeah, and I think if you think about it from my point of view, which I have two, I have the lending point of view and then the borrower. Like, I've done thousands of flips. If I don't have a detailed scope to give to the lender, I don't feel very confident that you've got a detailed scope that you gave to the contractor. And so then if you don't, if I've got something that doesn't have a lot of detail and leaves, mainly questions, what's the contractor going off of, and how are we going to get the right execution on time, on budget, with the right materials? And so it's really kind of setting up the project for success across the board, from setting the lender up for success to get you your draws out quickly, and then most important is setting your contractor up for success so that this deal is going to stay on track, on budget, and all those things. So I think when we see scopes that don't have a lot of detail, it begs the question, does your contractor know what we're trying to do here too?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's one of those cases, right, where, again, looking at the seasoned investors, I've got 3 or 4 projects going at once. I'm gonna, as you said, Jeff, back of the napkin, this scope. I think what we've learned is it's that case where taking that extra 30 minutes to an hour to provide us a really detailed scope of work is going to save you, over the course of 5, 6, or 7 draws on that project, it might save you days. That detailed scope of work might be the difference between a 48-hour or a 72-hour turnaround on the draw, or it taking a little bit longer.
Well, that's it. I mean, the draw department is what we call a lose tie. If you do everything great on your team, Chase, you tie. Like, everyone, the borrower's saying, this is great, this is fine, that's what we expected.
Mm-hmm.
And then if one thing goes wrong, it's a loss. And so the better we can get those scopes, and I tell the borrowers all the time, I mean, have they looked at some of these AI tools that are out there? They can put their scope right into Gemini or Copilot or whatever and say, make this more detailed, and ask me questions on where you don't see detail. And within 5 minutes, you've got a robust scope that is amazing. And additionally, when we get into underwriting, which is, before Chase's part, the better the scope, the better the underwriter likes the deal. The least, the worse scope, and when we're looking at deals and the scope's not very detailed, it gets us scratching their head and saying, okay, how are they going to pull this off? And so utilize these tools. You can take an unsophisticated scope, put it into Gemini, and next thing you know, you've got something that is, ready for an investment deck.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm glad you brought up technology. It's something as a company that we have leaned heavily into over the past few years, and we continue to look at new avenues and new opportunities to utilize technology. Specifically for draws, I think it's probably the area where we've invested the most research and money over the last couple of years into making it a more streamlined process, making it easier for our borrowers. Jeff, we'll start with you. Talk a little bit about the new technology that we've leaned into that's allowed us to go with borrower-led inspections, and how have we taken that draw time down? We've cut it in half over the course of the last 12 months, and our expectation in 2026 is to do that again. Talk a little bit about the technology that we're leaning into.
Yeah, so the technology piece is really big. If you think about 10 years ago or 5 years ago, when you got a draw, it's really led by a couple companies, Trinity, Land Gorilla, and a few others, that send out a third-party inspector. They walk the asset, and then they send us back a list of percentages. I think the framing is 90% done, and the landscape's 10% done, and down the scope. And that's a good process, except for it's extremely inefficient. The borrowers are already at the property, and so we've been partnering with a couple of different platforms led by TrustPoint and Sitewire for us to have borrower-led inspections, so they can go take their photos on site. And our goal in 26 is to have draws in under a day for certain dollar limits. So under $100,000 draws, by the end of kind of Q1, we expect that most of those draws are going to go out in under a day, and really track it to see how many we can get out in a couple hours. And we measure that all the time. And technology, you can't do it without technology. we measure how much time it takes for Chase's team to put out these draws. And we look at that. We look for small wins. If we look at it and say, okay, today we got draws out 15 minutes faster than yesterday, that's a win that we celebrate. If it's longer, we look at that and say, what happened here? How do we get better?
Yeah.
Chase, give us a success story of somebody who called and maybe didn't have their expectations set really well and how we were able to kind of overcome it, and the success story there.
We had a story on Monday. We had a borrower come to the office, sign a check. I got to meet him face to face for the first time. And I mean, talk about a great experience. You know, I'm a big believer in delivering white glove service. I always try to have a very big personality on the phone, get to know these borrowers on a personal level so I can, one, understand their project, and two, just be reliant on or have them rely on me to be their best resource to help and have them understand that I'm going to be their guy to help them get their project from point A to point B in a timely manner. And that's the biggest thing for me. And I love speaking to these borrowers on the phone and getting to know them all on a personal level. And one of them came to the office the other day on Monday, and it was a great experience. It felt really, really good for me. You know, this guy we've talked in bad stuff over the phones and stuff over the course of the last few months. And he had nothing but great things to say to me. He talked to our VP of Finance, Brian. He had nothing great things to say about me to him. So those are like the minimal success stories, and people really starting to believe in our process and honing in. And those are the borrowers that do it the right way.
Yeah.
And the ones that do it the right way are the ones that always come back, and the ones that we're going to want to continue to do business with.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I mean, Chase sits outside my office, and if I'm having a less than great day, I can open my door, and within 5 minutes, I hear Chase on the phone with a borrower, and then I'm smiling again. If you borrow from us, chances are you're going to be talking to Chase as he's giving you the expectations, setting up those calls. So when you fund a deal, if you borrow from us, be looking out for a call from Chase, because he's going to walk you through exactly what it takes to be successful, because everybody does it a little bit different. We're set up for investors by investors. We want to get the money out as bad as you want to get it. You know, the borrowers want to get it. So be looking for that call, and then you'll get to see what we see every day. Chase is fun to talk to. He's great to talk about sports. So you can quiz him on that a little bit too.
He is a big sports fan, but he's all over the place with his teams, right? As most New Yorkers are diehard everything New York, but you've got a lot of different teams, don't you?
Just everything New York but football. I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan. It's pretty sad though, you know.
That's going to win you some love with the group, and then you're going to have people like, I'm not going to work with that.
Yeah.
Chase, as we're wrapping up, again, you spend hours a day on the phone with borrowers talking about nothing but draws and sports. If you could give one or two pieces of advice to our existing borrowers and prospective borrowers out there with regard to draws, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say details are our best friend, providing us the documentation uploaded to the portal when we're reviewing these draws, and also leaving comments telling us the full story of what's going on with the project. Details are our best friend, helps us with our review, avoids less back and forth and communication between us, and helps us get your project from point A to point B a lot faster.
Yeah, and then Jeff, you hit it on earlier, you know, putting your investor hat, take your lender hat off, put your investor hat on for a minute. I think it is that getting past that thought when we're asking you for all of this detail, that we're not just trying to create busy work for you as an investor, because we know you have a million things going on. But again, I want to go back to what I said earlier, is that extra 30 or 60 minutes that you put into that scope of work and that detail on the front end will save you days across the course of the several draws that you do on that project.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it'll save you time. The draws get to you faster, which means you pay your subs faster. The faster you pay your subs, the better price you can demand of your subs. And so there's a whole economy here that happens when you pay when you get your draws faster. The faster I give you the money, the faster you pay your folks, the better price you should demand of your folks. And that's what we did, is we made sure that we paid, you know, every Friday or whatever that was. If you pay quick and you pay good, you can demand better pricing, better performance for your subs. If your scope isn't great, and then it takes a little longer for us to put that puzzle piece together, then that money's not coming out as quick. You're not paying your subs as quick. They might move on to another job, or they might decide they don't want to take your next job, or they don't put in the work to it. So really, it's a domino effect. A really detailed scope, tell the story when it comes to Chase and team, and then you can start the successful flips but they just come time and time again because it's a repeatable process.
So before we wrap up, Chase, because you're a young guy, this is your first or second job out of college,
Yeah.
right? And you've worn a couple different hats here, and you've been able to elevate through the company and done a fantastic job. Talk a little bit about from day one to today, your journey at HouseMax and how you really view the company culture.
Yeah. To start off, I started off as a BDR working under you, funny enough. And, I learned a lot in the midst of that process. I was in the sales side at first, and then an opportunity struck in January of 2025 to move over to the draw team. Myself, I'm always up for a challenge and always willing to learn. I'm always eager to learn. And I was willing to take that step to elevate my game and elevate my knowledge in real estate and take it to a whole different level. And I thought it was the perfect blend for me. I get to talk, it's a very client-facing role, get to talk to borrowers on a day-to-day basis, whether it's about sports, whether it's about the real estate projects, whatever the case may be. I always come to work with a smile on my face. I think the biggest thing, and our HR head, Stephanie, always says it, I don't get to come to work every day. It's a privilege to come for me to work every single day. And it's a great team to be a part of. I moved from Long Island, New York, post-graduation back in 2022. So moving 2,500 miles away from my whole family. I mean, HouseMax really feels like my second family, and coming to work every single day puts a real big smile on my face.
Awesome. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Good job, buddy.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
You're good, man.
Yeah. Thank you.